CERN is the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider. It's the largest machine in the world, located in Switzerland, and it's all underground, and it uses this gigantic track, this underground tube that's connected, and they send atoms in opposite directions and speed them up to, a percentage of the speed of light, and then let them collide. And then they analyze the collision to see what comes out of this collision between atoms, quarks and muons and everything else that they discover. But something else they discover in the process is that they create microscopic black holes. Now,
really?
Yeah. So originally, a lot of people were getting scared about this because they were like, man, if you guys create a black hole here on Earth, will it suck the Earth in? I mean, kind of fair to assume, like, black holes are supposed to be pretty deadly things. Even light can't escape them. Mm-hmm. So why create one here on Earth? But I think, in my opinion, again, this is nothing that I've read, but my hypothesis is that part of the work going on at CERN is to learn how to create stable wormholes. What Einstein and Rosen called an Einstein-Rosen bridge, where you take space and you fold it and make a hole, punch a hole in between to make a connection, a shortcut through space-time. And so it could be learning or trying to experiment either by accident or on purpose, how to create a stable wormhole. How do you create one and hold it open? The biggest thing is holding it open.
Hold on. Let's backtrack. Yeah. I'm slow. So I don't have a degree in astrophysics and I don't have anything from MIT or Harvard. So you're talking about you're folding space and creating a hole through it. So I'm envisioning.
Yeah. You take a piece of paper.
Dr. Greer kind of showed me this, I think.
You just bend it like this.
Bend it like this.
And if you had a pencil, you could poke a hole right through. So you can go from point A to point B. Instead of traveling over the length of that sheet of paper to get from point A to point B, you now just arrive at point B almost instantaneously.
Okay.
You see? And Einstein and another professor, a theoretical physicist named Rosen, they call it the Einstein-Rosen bridge, was a theoretical name for this type of hypothesis on how to create a wormhole, or what a wormhole would be, how it would operate, how it would work. The biggest problem that we have is not creating the wormhole now, because we can create them, but how do you keep it open? How do you make it stable for something to pass through without collapsing? Now, NASA recently discovered something called X points around Earth and also around the sun. These are naturally occurring portals that open and close every single day all around the outside of our planet. The Themis satellite system discovered these portals a few years back, and they've been analyzing and watching them. Some of them create direct pathways to the sun and even to other planets in our solar system. So these are called X points. They exist all around the outside of our planet. They're where magnetic diffusion points hit and cross, like our magnetic fields hit and cross. In some way, combining that crossing of electromagnetic fields with charged particles from the sun opens up a portal. So portals naturally can occur in nature. You don't have to make them artificially. So that's pretty interesting. All we have to do now is learn how to harness that power, and we can travel through space, and we can go great distances without having to put ourselves in hibernation pods and things like that. Mm-hmm. But now what's interesting is you look at some of the pyramid structures and also read the ancient texts. If you go to one of the Sumerian tablets, they talk about having something called a Du-Ran Ki. It was called a bond heaven-earth. And Enlil talks about walking from his home world directly to Earth and walking from Earth directly back to his home world, bypassing even getting in a spaceship. You go fast forward a little bit more, the ancient Egyptians talk about something called a Jed Pillar Ankh. They have a Jed connected to the inside of Ankh. People think the Ankh was like for decoration or represented rebirth and the womb of a woman and all that. It kind of did. Nowadays it's just decoration like jewelry. But it also represented something more technological in the ancient times. When you go to the super ancient texts, you discover that Ankh and that Jed were a oscillator that would resonate to the atomic frequency of the owner. That was the code programmed into the actual Ankh. The actual portal that they would walk through to travel wherever they were going, it would only let you walk through it if your frequency was programmed into the portal. That was your key. Without walking through with that, you would be obliterated. That's how they kept people from just getting into these portals. Only the elite of the elite had access to these portals to travel all around the world. There's one in Mexico, in Tula, Mexico, where Thoth, the Atlantean, who came from Africa over there, he would stand there and this looks like an indention in the wall, and he would literally walk through it, and he would reappear somewhere else in the world, and he would come back from time to time and so forth. But again, he would have the Jed pillar Ankh in his hand. Then you look at Bosnia in Europe. There's a pyramid there called the Pyramid of the Sun. Just like the one, there's one in Mexico called the Pyramid of the Sun. There's one in Bosnia called the Pyramid of the Sun. It's massive. In this valley, there's like 5 massive pyramids, all covered with brush and trees and debris. They started digging this thing out. They said, oh my God, these are solid stone blocks. There's tunnels underneath that are connecting the pyramids, the same exact tunnels that are in Teotihuacan in Mexico, connecting the pyramid structures there. But inside of this one tunnel, they found this gigantic crystal. It's called the K2 megalith. And on it is written in runes, an ancient writing. It says, we must stand in defense until we can open the gate. Well, what gate are they talking about? I believe they're talking about the Stargate, to get from wherever they were to get out of this war. There was a war going on. Again, that second pyramid war I told you about. It was a global war. It wasn't only global, it was interplanetary as well, because it went to the moon and also to Mars. But that's probably going to be another podcast. But the evidence of it is available in scientific data. But this K2 megalith, this gigantic crystal, it has something to do with activating the portal at this Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia, which at some point they were defending it and trying to thwart some people from getting access to it until they can get it activated so they can walk through themselves. Pretty interesting stuff. And this is well documented, the K2 megalith gigantic crystal. So CERN, in my opinion, is researching and learning about technologies that already existed. Again, we're just rediscovering everything. When you go to CERN, right outside the front door is this gigantic picture of this Indian god that is standing inside of a portal, walking through. So I think they kind of knew what they were going to be doing when they started this whole building and started this whole project, but they just kind of kept it low-key to the general public, and they only released tidbits of information as to what's going on. There was something interesting before we go on. There was a field trip of sorts where they let the tour to let people come in and look around, and as one person was looking around, they saw these gigantic clear panels. They don't know what material they were made out of, and I have a picture of them leaning up against the side of a part of the machine with these hieroglyphs on them. So they sent these hieroglyphs out. Everyone, including I've sent the hieroglyphs out. Nobody can decipher these hieroglyphs. Nobody knows what in the world these are, what they mean, where they came from, who wrote them, what writing, what ancient culture are they linked to. Nobody knows. Massive, giant, clear plates leaning up against the machine. I think it were 4 of them, if I remember correctly. Pretty interesting. I just thought that was a weird thing that, to happen there. But they have at the front door, gigantic portal, a representation of a portal with one of these ancient Indian gods walking through it.
What do you think they're doing with these mini black holes that you think that they're creating?
All experiments.
Have they documented this?
Yeah, they have.
They
have, yeah. People were trying to stop them from doing it because it was gonna destroy the planet and everything else, but they just kept working anyway. They didn't care. But they are just, in my opinion, learning about these creation of portals, learning how to create stable wormholes, just all experimenting, just trying to figure out what type of energy can we inject into one of these holes that will stabilize it, maybe even expand it. And where do they lead? Where do they go? Like when we go through them, where will we end up? Maybe they're sending small probes through or things through to take a look. Maybe they're sending nano probes into them. Who knows?
What do you think about this? Are you for this? You against this? What do you think?
This type of research without complete oversight, to me, is scary stuff, man. I mean,
me too.
You don't even know what can come through. Like, I do believe in life in other worlds and also life in even other dimensions. We know that based on theoretical physicists like Michio Kaku and many other well-respected physicists, that we're living in a universe based on 11 dimensions. They theorized based on the mathematics that without 11 dimensions, this universe would collapse. Okay?
Okay, so can you... I have a tough time wrapping my head around different dimensions as well.
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple different people. They broke it down fairly well for me. I would like to hear you break down what is a dimension?
Yeah. Well, dimension is a realm that exists at a different frequency. So right now we're in the 3rd dimension. We only can control the 1st and the 2nd. All right. The 1st dimension is a line. The 2nd dimension is connected lines. And because we're in the third dimension, we're like the God over the second and the first. We can control and manipulate those dimensions from the outside. If people were living in those dimensions, like one-dimensional people or two-dimensional people, they would be at complete awe of what our capabilities were, because they first of all, they wouldn't be able to see us as a third-dimensional being. All they would see is the manipulation of their environment, and they would wonder what's going on. All right, so that's the kind of power we would have. Now, extrapolate fourth dimension. The fourth dimension used to be said it was time. It's not time. That's just a hypothesis that Einstein was trying to correlate time to the third. The fourth dimension is a tesseract, a fourth dimensional hypercube. From the fourth dimension and all the way up, things change completely. So we're in the third. Somebody in the fourth dimension, an entity in the fourth dimension, can see into everything. They can see through this ceiling and watch us sitting here right now. All right? They can see the past, present, and future all at the same time. In other words, when I first walked in a building and you greeted me, they would see that. In another room, they would see us taking photos. And in this room, they would see us doing this interview. But they would see all three things happening at the same time. It's like having a house and living different parts of your life at the same time in different years in the same house, right? And then above that, you have the fifth, sixth, seventh. Now, these dimensions are compactified. And yes, that's an actual real word, compactified. Look it up, guys. Whoever's looking, look up the word. They're stacked so tight on top of each other that they're like a Planck unit of distance away from this universe, right? And now the only way to get into one is to move into a right angle at a different frequency. You have to obtain the subatomic frequency of that dimension. So if there are beings in higher dimensions that have developed the ability to understand and get the actual subatomic frequency number of the third dimension in this universe, they can theoretically walk from their universe or their dimension directly into ours.
What do you mean, the frequency?
Okay. Every universe has a specific frequency. Every dimension in that same universe also has a frequency. Every atom resonates at a specific frequency. Nothing ever rests. Everything is always vibrating. At the subatomic level, we know that when you dig deep into the nucleus of an actual atom, what's in there is a tiny vibrating string. So we're living in a symphony of music, and the music that's jingling and making this noise is creating the illusion of physicality, the illusion of solidity, even the illusion of distance, which doesn't even exist. And so that's what we're living in. Now, if I can obtain, for example, let's say there's a cancer tumor in a person's body. Mm-hmm. The cells in that cancerous tumor are now operating or vibrating at a specific resonant frequency. We know this for a fact. If I have a device that actually can match the frequency of that tumor, I can send a cancellation frequency to that tumor.
You're talking about a Rife machine.
Something like a Rife machine. I can destroy it without destroying the surrounding tissue, right? So imagine having the capability of now understanding on a more grand scale, a dimension, fifth dimension, like somebody there obtains the frequency of the third dimension. They can just come right on through. This could be some of the reason for paranormal activity and things like that. It could be entities or beings having a peek into our world, into our dimension. It might not be anything scary at all, in some cases. Will it scare us? Maybe, yeah, because we can't perceive them as to what they truly appear and look like, but it could be a higher dimensional being coming to have a look around. They could be on vacation. I mean, theoretically,
I don't know who the hell is going to come on vacation to this world, buddy, but
it's something to look at. This is a reality show. Okay, yeah. We're on season 2023. That's just the way it is, man.
Yeah. So there's 11 frequencies.
11 dimensions.
Who came up with this?
Oh, big-time theoretical physicist, Michio Kaku, Professor James Gates Jr., and many other supersymmetry experts. And then, now, I've been talking about the fact that if there's 11 dimensions, that our mind connects to also 11 dimensions for over a decade. And if you go back and look at some of those old posts, people were calling me a kook, a crazy, a tinfoil wearing hat, pseudoscientist, blah, blah, blah. Well, 2 years ago, scientists at the Brain Institute discovered that the human mind connects to what? 11 dimensions. So now, my theory was accurate, science has proved it, and theoretical physicists say that there are 11 dimensions. So our minds, our consciousness is multidimensional. And everything that exists in the third dimension that we had we took part in creating it started all on the multidimensional platform. So this chair that we're sitting in right now, a person thought about this chair first before it manifested as solid matter, but they thought about it on the multidimensional platform, higher dimensional thinking, the original platform before all these other platforms came out. And in that realm, it existed and was constructed in a higher dimension. Then what happens is the person who was thinking about creating this chair collapsed it from multi-dimensions into 2 dimensions. How? By drawing it on a piece of paper. Then it went from there probably into a computer nowadays, so it's a CAD, computer-assisted design, which is still 2D, even though it gives you the illusion of 3D in the computer. All computer screens are just 2-dimensional objects. And from there, it gets sent, now the data from it gets sent to an engineer who now crafts it into a 3-dimensional object that we can maneuver in XYZ axis in space-time. So this chair that I'm sitting in and you're sitting in started off, it was created in multi-dimensions and then collapsed into a 3-dimensional structure that we're sitting on right now.